I can't thank David Hochberg enough for the continued support of Live from My Office as our title sponsor. And the David Hochberg words of the day are credit utilization. Ooh, what's credit utilization? I don't know, but he knows. Actually, I do know. Credit utilization is the amount of credit debt you have out there and how you're using it and how you're paying it down. Now, that's as basic a definition as I can give you because I looked it up a few minutes ago, and that seems right. David Hochberg knows all the terms related to your credit score and making sure your credit rating is great to make sure you get the best terms whenever you go ahead and do a loan of any kind. He's got the experts. He's got a guy. He's got several guys and ladies, too, and they're all teed up to help you. David Hochberg and Team Hochberg can save you money in so many ways, but you have to ask for the help, and they will step up and give it to you. 855-56-DAVID, 56david.com. Remember, credit utilization. It matters. And here we go. How about a song to begin this episode? Live from my office. Doesn't it sound sort of like something you'd hear on a cruise ship from a guy who can't really sing, but he's wearing a nice tux? Look, it's time to plan travel and vacation. And when it comes to the cruise that you've been thinking about taking, maybe you wanted to take, maybe you go back a couple of years, you had it booked, you had to cancel it, you want to rebook it, all of those things. There's nobody better in the cruise business than Stewart Chiron. I have taken a couple of cruises with my family specifically because he let me drive the boat. Well, okay, not exactly, but perfect guidance all the time. Tells the truth. Doesn't pull any punches. It's one of the things I really like about Stewart because you know the information is accurate. He's on the radio for me for years, and he's been a regular guest here on the podcast as well. So everything you wanted to know that we could think of when it comes to cruises. Coming up as we talk a little travel on Live from My Office. Stand by when we get to that. Before we do get to that, though, I do want you to know that there is a big summer ahead here. There's lots of things coming up. There's going to be a Men of a Certain Rage tour with John DeCoste, Mike Toomey, Tim Benker, and me. We're putting together deals on that right now. And I may be having another announcement soon. I'm going to save it for another episode. Yeah, it's a sucker tease to try to get you to listen, but there's something else coming up. If you're good enough to show an interest in this show and have been a fan of the radio show, I think you're going to be interested in that as well. All right? That's either a really good tease or a terrible lame tease. I'm not sure which. But in the meantime, your support here is always appreciated. And let's come up with a catchphrase for today's episode. I've still got these apt gift cards to give away. Here's what I'll do. Here's what I did. The first 5 people that send me an email at thecochronshow@gmail.com with today's catchphrase, which I'm just making up right now. I know you find that hard to believe, but today's catchphrase is, "Hey, Steve, what's in it for me?" Hey, Steve, what's in it for me? Send me that catchphrase, your mailing address. I'll know that you listen. If you're any of the first 5 that get in by email at thecochronshow@gmail.com, I'll send you a gift card from Apt. Pleasing people since the Renaissance era. Thank you, Apt, for that as well. And, of course, the big thank you, that always goes to David Hochberg and Team Hochberg. And why not? They are the title sponsors of Live from My Office, 855-56-DAVID or 56david.com. And Cantini Golf, one of the best golf courses in America with better customer service than I've seen anywhere. It's Cantini Golf. We're getting into the time of season where you can actually play and not freeze or have to wear hip waders. So enjoy Cantini Golf this summer, Cantigny for Cantini Golf. In Wheaton. All right, that sums up everything we have to do detail-wise. Now let's come back and get into the specifics with a cruise guy next on Live from My Office. You love golf like I do? You know somebody that loves golf like I do? Maybe they annoy you as much as I annoy my wife when it comes to golf because I talk about it, I think about it, I watch it, and I play it. But I play it with fitted golf clubs. I'm not good. And the best way to be better is to play with golf clubs that actually fit you. It's a big deal. Man, if you've played golf one time or you play 100 times a summer, you know it's a hard game. But you can make it a little easier. And if you're serious about it, you're going to want to be fit. You're trying to think maybe for Father's Day or Mother's Day or both. What can I do for my golf-crazed mom or dad or husband or wife? Club fitting. A club fitting at Cantini. Cantini has a man named Paul Taylor. Paul Taylor gets up in the morning and he thinks, you know what would make me happy is if I take a man or a woman in here today and fit them perfectly to a new set of golf clubs. And by the way, there's no pressure to buy golf clubs. He can hook you up if you want, but he's not going to bug you for that. He just wants you to make sure you know the specifics of your golf swing and what you need to be perfectly fit to new clubs, whether it's one club as a driver or a putter or anything in between, including the full set. You're going to enjoy getting fit. And he is fantastic. Nobody better than Paul Taylor. Get a hold of him at 630-260-8199 or cantinigolf.com, CANTIGNY. It's easy. There's no stupid questions. Dare I say it's fun. And sure, you can buy brand new clubs, club, putter, anything in between. But you don't have to. It's up to you. You're just going to love this fitting process for sure. Cantinigolf.com, CANTIGNY golf.com. And if you have any questions about anything else related to Cantini, you could call the Pro Shop too. Let me give you that number, 630-260-8197. CantiniGolf.com. This is live from my office, and as you pack that suitcase and you're thinking about what your next vacation is, many of you are thinking about it. Is it time to go back on the boat? Is it time to take a cruise? Maybe your first, maybe your 50th. Or if you're my friend Stewart Chiron, the cruise guy, maybe your 300th. He's closing in on that number as he joins me now. And how are you, sir?
Hey, Steve, doing great.
300 cruises. You've been on the water longer than Gilligan.
Yeah. Well, last year it was 14.
That's
between
amazing.
June and December.
Well, let's start with the obvious. The airlines just were told no more masks. What are the cruises doing about that mask mandate drop? Where does that fall?
Well, I could tell you the cruise industry dropped masks, the requirement for masks, starting March 1.
Okay.
There have been a couple of cruise lines that actually never required masks. They've all had to follow the CDC guidelines. So essentially, the cruise lines have met or exceeded all of the CDC guidelines. And with all of the recent changes, which there have been many. You remember the warnings. They were at DEFCON 4, then they went to 3. The cruise industry continued to make changes based on health protocols. So it was based on the science, not the politics. And they kept adjusting their health protocols, requiring negative tests before getting on. Everyone having to be vaccinated. They wanted the ships at either 95 to 100% fully vaccinated, which included the crew. Which is in large part is why the numbers of cases of COVID on board ships have been disproportionately lower than what we've seen here on land. When, Florida, back in, let's say December was at 25, 26% positivity. Texas was at 24. New York was at 50. Royal Caribbean, which was Royal Caribbean International, Celebrity Cruise, and Silver Sea, provided details that, they had over 1.5 million passengers in less than 6 months, and their positivity rate was only 0.15%.
Wow. Nobody's talking about that.
Yeah, well, it doesn't fit the narrative, but it was almost nothing. Having everything foolproof is impossible. COVID will find a way on the ships. It's just a question of how they can help prevent it. There have been passengers who knew they had it and got on. There were people that were feeling sick, got a negative test, got on, and the next day they started feeling ill. So what we essentially have been telling people, if you're sick, don't go.
Yeah, but the thing that I think that's important to state too is, and you've taught me this forever, it should be common sense in my world, but it's not to a lot of people. There's no upside for the cruises to be haphazard about how they take care of the passengers on their ship. And they clean these things like a surgical OR, and they do the best they can to make sure that everybody's safe. That doesn't account for honesty or lack of honesty by the folks involved, But if somebody does get sick, talk for a second about how fully equipped they are. They've seen everything medically, haven't they?
Yes. And they do have areas of the ship that are strictly quarantine areas. So if people do test positive, they are moved from their cabins and moved into these quarantine areas. They are given, very good medical care, and they're kept a safe distance away from the other passengers. And as we've seen on all the ships that have resumed since sailings in June, in the Caribbean, in the Mediterranean, Mexican Riviera, a little bit of Alaska last year, that never once has a cruise ship ever been quarantined again, that we saw back in March of 20. There were some passengers. They were quarantined. They were taken care of. But the rest of the ship was able to go on about its, enjoyment of being able to provide a very nice vacation for cruise passengers. And,
right.
I could tell you, especially on those first several cruises, I was on that first cruise back in June on Celebrity Millennium. At the end of the cruise, 2 passengers were diagnosed as having COVID. They did inform the passengers, and everyone else was able to, continue on with the last couple of days of their vacation. And I could tell you in some of the ports, there were a lot of times where a lot of people didn't get off the ship at the beginning. People they were just thrilled to be on a cruise, thrilled to not have to wear masks, and to be in a safe environment. And so it really didn't matter where you were going. People just wanted to get away. There were some times where, the ports that the ships were going to were involving ships that weren't dealing with the 95% mask vaccination rates. So the passengers were, on certain ships were required to take the cruise line tours, which, had tour operators that met, certain standards, or passengers may not have been let off the ships. I mean, it was early on. Now people are getting off the ships as desired. They're able to take self-guided tours. For the most part, there still are some ports that do require passengers to take cruise line tours, which is fine. But for the most part, as we're heading into the summer, people can go and enjoy their cruises. The Caribbean, with the ports that they're going to, the cruise lines and the ports they're visiting have found their stride, and the people are able to get off. They are able to enjoy their cruise. And but for the most part, I mean, it's worked, incredibly well so far.
Yeah, the system is in play because they've perfected the system to the best of their ability. And we all need to accept that COVID's going to be a part of our lives the same way the flu and a head cold and all those things are. And we need to behave like grown-ups and do the best to take care of ourselves and consider the people around us. What about being able to keep the staffs up at a level to provide the service that these ships want to provide when everybody's saying they can't find people to work?
Well, believe it or not, the cruise lines have had a very strong rate of getting their crews back.
Good.
Throughout the pandemic. I mean, they had essentially about a 95%, of the crews, are back on the ships. And the fleets in general are over, I'd say, 80% at this point back in service. They're continuing to, reintroduce a lot more ships. There have been some hiccups where some cruise lines were anticipating bringing on certain ships to certain destinations, wound up having to postpone those, the resumption of service because they couldn't get enough of the crews. So they had to move the crews that were on those ships to other ships. So, I mean, they're doing it in a very methodical way. So when you're on the ships, you're not noticing any disparity. There's no, we can't do this because of a lack of crew.
Well, that's
They
great.
are operating perfectly well. In some cases, there's more crew on some ships than passengers.
All right, so let's talk about the good news. What's available out there? What's running? And what do you recommend people take a look at? And start for me, if you wouldn't mind. Start with Alaska for the summer.
Well, I mean, Alaska is going to do very well this summer. Contrary to certain reports where they were expecting record-breaking numbers of 1.5 to 1.6 million passengers, someone's living in a parallel universe. There are going to be a lot of ships there in 2022. I realistically think a million is a really good number to be anticipating because a lot of these ships are still working on reduced capacities. The peak of the booking season, which essentially started in January, was thwarted by the CDC's level 4 warning not to cruise, as well as Omicron was peaking.
Right.
So I think 1 million is going to be good, and people are going to go enjoy these sailings and these ports where even if you've done it, you're going to notice far fewer people than you would have in a normal year. Alaska is going to do well. The Caribbean, for example, is going to do very well. It has done well. It's the biggest cruise market in the world. The Mexican Riviera, I was just there on the brand new Discovery Princess Cruises' newest ship, just a few weeks ago. And then out the Caribbean, Wonder of the Seas, which was the largest ship in the world. The Mediterranean is going to do very well this summer. We're going to see a lot more international passengers on those sailings. But what's most important to understand, Steve, is that the health protocols are not being reduced or eliminated. You're still going to have to be fully vaccinated.
Right.
And you're still going to have to bring a negative test within 2 days of the sailing. So the health protocols are still there and continue to be there because they want to be able to provide as safe a vacation as possible.
All right. So before we leave Alaska, is there a particular cruise to Alaska that you always recommend?
Well, I mean, doing something round trip out of Seattle.
Okay.
I mean, there's so many options. I mean, you've got, the Royal Caribbean, the Princesses, the Holland Americas, the Celebrities. I mean, there's a lot of very good cruises. And then you've got your, one-ways, when you get onto the Seabourns and the Regent Seven Seas cruises and and Holland American Princess, where you can go between Anchorage and Vancouver. They have the cruise tours if you want to even go, deeper into Alaska and see Denali and Fairbanks and the Mount McKinley areas, and then the Denali area. Alaska's going to be, it's a wonderful time, and the people up there really need the tourism dollars.
Yeah.
Last year was a shortened season.
So you can package this up in sort of an a la carte way to meet whatever your specific needs are. Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, and that's the beauty of, let's say, sailing out of Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
Sailing out of Seattle versus, let's say, a ship out of Vancouver will save 30 to 40% on your airfare alone.
Wow.
So if you're not doing a cruise tour, just catching one of those ships out of Seattle round trip, you're not flying international, you get on the ship, you sail for 7 nights, you visit Alaska, Juneau, Ketchikan, Skagway, the railroads up there in Skagway, the glaciers in Juneau. I mean, Alaska is really an amazing place, but if you're looking for the best bang for the buck, the most value added prospect, it's leaving out of Seattle. It's hassle free.
You mentioned the Mexican Riviera. Talk a little bit about that, because I think a lot of people who have done an occasional cruise, they probably haven't tried that.
Well, and they may have, let's say, gone to Ensenada. They've done a 3 or 4 day cruise. But, I just went to Cabo San Lucas, and I was very impressed with how well they've rebounded. I mean, in a lot of the ports, Steve, around the world, especially in the Caribbean, a lot of the towns, the shops are closed. I mean, I was in Venice last summer, after I did a Mediterranean cruise. We flew from Athens to Milan and spent some time up in northern Italy. And then we went to Venice for the day. I was blown away. Venice was essentially in St. Mark's Square. There may have been 125 people there, and a lot of the stores were shut. They were closed. They were out of business. They weren't just closed for the season. They were gone. Businesses that had been, restaurants and shops that had been there for maybe some up to 100 years.
Yeah,
were gone. And in the Caribbean, a lot of the shops were still closed. New tenants and new businesses were replacing them. But some of these other places, they're actually doing quite well, and they're ready to rebound.
Well, that's encouraging, to say the least. If you are going to go to the Caribbean, there's a billion choices. When I've sailed with the help of you, we go out of Miami. Is that the best bet?
Well, Miami, there's Fort Lauderdale, there's Port Canaveral, which is near Orlando. Mm-hmm. Those are the three, believe it or not, the three busiest ports in the world.
Oh, is that right?
For cruise ships, yeah. Miami by far being the biggest. But, there's so many different options and, places to go and different ships offering, very different experiences. And as more of these islands open up, I mean, some of my favorite. I mean, one of my favorites I finally got a chance to go visit last year was St. Kitts, and I was on Seabourn. We went to Carambola Beach, so they did a lobster, caviar, champagne brunch on the beach. I mean, the
Wow.
island is just oozing with history. I mean, in 2023, they'll be celebrating their 400th anniversary. They still have a lot of their British heritage there, but it's an amazing place that and the beauty of cruising, Steve, is you get a chance to try out a lot of places. Some places, it was great for the day, but St. Kitts, for example, is a place I'd like to go back and actually spend some time. It offers, there's just a lot. They have some nice new hotels going up, beautiful beaches. Nevis was just across the bay there. And again, the history, there's a lot of the islands, there's so much to see and do, but sometimes it's just nice to be on a ship. And I haven't been on a ship where people were fighting for deck chairs since the resumption of
there you go.
service.
How about that?
So that's been nice.
The Mediterranean cruises, for first timers thinking about that, what do you recommend?
Well, so I'll be heading out in May, Steve, on the brand new Celebrity Beyond, and I'm taking the family. Last year, I did what was brand new, the Celebrity Apex last year. I mean, there weren't very many ships, so that was just, an absolutely delightful experience. Sailing out of Civitavecchia, for Rome, spending a couple of days in Rome, getting on the ship, going around to Greece has just been, terrific. Visiting Greece and Italy, really looking forward to it. I've done a lot of the ports, but I mean, there's a couple of new ones, and this summer we'll be able to experience, one of my favorite places, Santorini, and take the kids there, and then get back to the ship for dinner, relax, and then come back and watch the sunset from Santorini, which overlooks this beautiful harbor area, and of course that middle area they say that's where Atlantis is.
Right.
Just right from but there's just so many wonderful experiences to be able to share. Together, people could be together again. Families can reunite and go and do things together, and do it. It's not going to be as expensive as it's been. Airfares are still down traditionally from where they normally would, and there's still opportunities for last minute plans. So if you haven't thought about what to do, I mean, there is a strong surge of people that are looking to book their summer vacations. And to me, Steve, at almost 291 cruises, I mean, there's plenty of opportunities, and it's a great place to, these are great places to go.
And the cruise guy's the guy to talk to about it. You mentioned Seabourn a couple of times. Is that technically one of the river cruise lines, or is that something different?
No. Seabourn is one of the now remaining 3 ultra luxury cruise lines.
Okay. So a smaller ship, high-end everything.
Yes. There's about 550 passengers. It's a smaller ship, but it's that's the creme of the creme de la creme, the Rolls Royce of the cruise industry.
What about the river cruises? Is that more of a European thing?
Well, I mean, they're primarily in Europe. They are very popular. I mean, they only carry about 150 people. They're significantly smaller, and you have to also be concerned about the level of the rivers, because you could get stuck in certain ports and have to bus between ports. But generally they're in the process of restarting, and the people do. There are many different destinations that people do enjoy doing river cruises. Do
you handle that end of things as well for people when they want to know?
Yeah, they can, but I've been focusing for 33 years now on ocean.
So let's talk about Cruise 101, which is what you and I usually go through, just so people understand. Should you book airfare with your cruise and make it a package, or book air separate? And of course, that's a general question, but generally speaking.
Well, generally speaking, it's always a good idea to look at it with and without the air. Okay. And a lot of times you can get the air cheaper, and you can get the schedule that you want on the airline that you want. Versus, waiting for the cruise line. They may get you on a connection. It could be a double connection. It could be just a terrible itinerary. A lot of times people are looking to, alter their trips, especially into Europe. So it's always better to book the air separately because, the cruise lines don't own the airlines.
And for people that are really newbies when it comes to cruises, what about ports of call? What do you recommend? Go to the cruise website, work with you on packages. Here's what I want to see. Here's what I don't want to see. And how do people know?
Well, what I always recommend is research online, but never book online.
Okay.
And, it's great to look at the cruise lines websites, look at some of the, top, reseller websites. I mean, you can go to cruiseguide.com. There's a great booking engine there. You can search for, ships to different destinations. You can search by, departure ports. It could be, based on times, dates that you want to go, and it gives you an idea. But doing the research is very important to do it online. But booking online is not something I recommend, simply because you never know if you're going to get if that's the best deal that's out there. There could be military discounts, resident discounts. There could be discounts if you're wearing a blue shirt on a Tuesday afternoon.
Right.
So that's why it's important to be able to, speak to somebody, because there could be a better deal on a better ship. You wind up in a better cabin for less money than something that you had found online. So there's a lot of reasons, and always book with a travel agent, never direct, because you need someone to be able to advocate for you.
Yeah, and that stuff you can guide folks through too. Cruiseguide.com. What's another fundamental that you want people to know about cruises that maybe it's new or maybe it's one that people always should think about?
Well, I'd say travel insurance.
Okay.
And, people that got caught up in the early stages of COVID, a lot of people got caught with their, without the proper benefits, because none of those policies, covered COVID. Now, there are some policies today that don't cover COVID. So it's important to do the homework to ensure that you're covered. And some people say, well, I know I'm 100%, I'm going on this cruise regardless. Well, you never know what is going to happen.
Yeah, and by the way, it could be your own life too, right? It's not just something that could go on with the problem of getting there and going. You could have something come up in your own world.
Right. So maybe the trip cancellation isn't the most important part. The most important part is the interruption and the medical coverages that these different insurance policies provide. So, when I'm traveling to Europe, I know I'm going, so I may, I'll opt not to take the cancellation, because I know the hotels I booked, I'll be able to get a refund. The airline, I'll be able to at least get a credit, so I'm not concerned about that. But it's the getting home, the trip getting interrupted. If you have to fly home and you have to be evacuated, I mean, you want to have a couple of $100,000 worth of coverage to cover that, plus medical coverage. Well, people listening, Steve, will say, well, I've got my travel, my personal, medical insurance would cover me. And a lot of times that isn't the case. That those coverages that you may have through your employer, for example, may only cover you when you're traveling within the United States. They may not cover you internationally. And a lot of people don't take that into consideration. And for literally, it could be $50 to $150 to cover the cost of the trip to cover you for medical and interruption. It seems kind of silly, not to mention you may have your suitcases lost or stolen.
Sure. 100%.
And people don't realize that the airline, for example, may only be liable for $50.
Right.
And you could say, well, I had $1,500 worth of stuff in my suitcase. Well, you should have had travel insurance. And that's what they'll tell you every single time. And it's always good to consider the travel insurance as part of your trip, because you are traveling internationally. Yeah,
that's the real life fine print there. All right, so let me throw a few what ifs at you. If I'm a family with young kids, recommend a couple of cruises for me.
Well, you got Royal Caribbean, Princess, Celebrity, Disney, of course, Carnival. One of the most popular, choice for families. So they all do it well. They all don't do it well.
Oh, okay.
Some do it better. Some do it better than others. And when you're talking about families, Steve, it also depends on how young the kids are. What you don't want to do is be on a 3,000 passenger ship with 2,700 kids.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
So it can happen. So that's why it's important to understand, what, each of these ships have to offer. And I mean, there are fewer kids. I mean, some cruise lines are requiring the kids to be vaccinated, but, 5 and older.
Yep.
And these things the goalposts are changing. So it's important to do that research online, but it's interesting to see how, people are moving forward with their summer vacations.
What about a young couple? I'm thinking probably early 20s or groups of singles. Where are they going?
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, they're going to the Caribbean. I mean, believe it or not, Alaska, Mexican Riviera, even the Mediterranean. And I'd say that for a lot of different groups. I mean,
But is there a line that specializes in that demographic?
Well, I mean, Steve, I'd have to say that essentially they all do. They'll all tell you that, we do this and we do that. For younger people, Carnival does well. Norwegian Cruise Line does well. Celebrity, Princess. I mean, they all kind of are mishmashing. It just depends on what degree, what level of service, what level of ship quality are you looking for. It's kind of like what kind of car you like to drive.
Sure. Same goes for family reunion cruises, which I know is a thing.
Yeah. I mean, there's some that may want to go on something, hoity-toity, and money's no object, and they want to spend $10,000 a person. There's millionaires that just love Carnival.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on the experience. I mean, I could tell you, I did Carnival's new Mardi Gras last summer, which was the first ship to have a roller coaster on board. I mean, the activities on the ships have really changed.
That's just unbelievable.
The dining. I mean, there are ships with Steve that have skydiving simulators. They have surfing pools. They still, a lot of the Royal Caribbean ships, they still have the ice skating rinks. It's just zip lines and miniature golf, and
you're never going to be
really
bored.
Something for everybody.
If anybody in your party says they're bored, they shouldn't have come, because there's always something to do. I always like to wrap things up with you by asking about something amazing you've seen lately, because the business and the ships, they change all the time. You mentioned Wonder of the Seas. Is that the biggest?
Yeah. That is the biggest ship. It's 236, almost 237,000 tons, and it can hold almost 7,000 passengers. I think it's about 6,600. But when we were on, there was only about 4,800 passengers, and right now it sails from Fort Lauderdale to the Eastern and Western Caribbean. But then it's heading to Europe for the summer. I mean, as a lot of ships are, they're getting ready to actually reposition in April, and they'll be sailing in their summer homes in May. And unfortunately, a lot of all of the cruise lines have canceled their northern Europe visits to St. Petersburg, Russia, for example, which has always been very popular. And some ships they just rerouted to other ports within northern Europe, or they're just not going there. But the Mediterranean is going to be very popular this summer, as it always is. And my kids have done it many times, and sometimes, we could be on a couple of different cruises over the summer, Steve, and we may, cross over with certain ports, and it's terrific. I mean, each time you go, you see something new.
Sure. And the Wonder of the Seas,
relive something you enjoy.
The reason I mentioned the Wonder of the Seas is when they design these ships and they do their ideas room and come up with, what are we going to do that's different, or what's going to be next? It's not just a huge ship. There's got to be something on there that you hadn't seen other places. Is there anything that jumps to mind?
Well, keep in mind when the first of the Oasis class ships, the Oasis of the Seas, came out in 2009. This ship was designed to have a lot of different activities on one ship, and then they built a ship around it. And so that ship was at 225,000 tons, and it's evolved 5 ships, later into 236,000 tons. The different dining venues that they want to provide, they created another suite, a deck of suites for people that are looking for a section of the ship that's reserved for just suites. But then, it's an opportunity for everyone to be together. They have the big showrooms. They have smaller showrooms. They have intimate lounges throughout the ship. Plenty of open deck space. When you see, Central Park, for example, which is in the middle of the ship with this, 10-story open air atrium, and you wouldn't believe you're on a ship. And, going to these amazing, you go to, there's a wine bar, and you can grab some champagne, and then you roll over to dinner. There's, chops, or, they have a, Giovanni's,
sure.
kitchen, for Italian food. And you'd swear, you're in downtown Chicago enjoying a beautiful
sure.
meal, and, you're on a ship, and you go up 10 stories, outside, and you look at the ocean, and you're like, holy cow. It's just hard to believe. And even after all these cruises, Steve, it never does get old.
That says it all, really, doesn't it? There's a great search engine at cruiseguide.com, and it's a great website, and you can get a lot, if not all of your questions answered there, but there's ways to contact Stewart, and I highly recommend it. Start with cruiseguide.com every time, whether you're in the consideration phase or even if you book something. Go to cruiseguide.com and go, maybe I ought to reconsider this or that, and get out there, because those ships are ready to sail. The people are back that are working them, and you're going to have fun. That's the bottom line. You're going to have a great experience.
And safe.
And safe, right. They're doing everything they can to keep you safe. Well, Mr. 291 headed for, is it 292 next? Is that next?
Well, 292 will be in May, but
right.
291 is coming up this weekend, and I'm super excited about it.
Have you projected when you'll hit 300? Will it be early 23?
No, it'll definitely be in 2022.
Oh, it'll be this year? Wow.
Oh, yeah. Wow. There's no doubt about it. I'm going to hit it. Going to hit it soon. Hopefully, even maybe just after end of summertime, maybe.
Well, when you get
a lot of cruises coming up.
Yeah, when you hit 300, that'll at least let you drive the ship for a while. Something you
exactly
do.
Yeah, I tried doing that with Gavin McLeod on the last cruise we did together back in February of 2022 before he passed. And, he was amazed there's no steering wheel anymore.
Yeah, they kind of run it a different way. Listen, you're a good man, and I always appreciate you doing this, but people need the information, and you're the guy to go to get it. CruiseGuy.com. Stewart Chiron, thank you, my friend.
My pleasure.
Now on Live from My Office, a warning. Don't wait. Waiting's bad. Waiting's bad anytime. Waiting for, your table at a restaurant. Waiting in line for anything. Waiting for something cool that's going to happen. Waiting to see someone you really want to see. They're all bad. You know what also sucks when it comes to waiting? Waiting for your perfect mortgage rate to come along in the year 2022. Let me tell you something. The Fed is going to raise rates again, and maybe a couple of times. And that means the mortgage rate you'll pay on an original mortgage or a refi, it's going to go up. Waiting is not your friend. You need to act now. And the good people at Team Hochberg, David Hochberg and all of his people, they're going to tell you exactly when you can refi to a lower rate. Maybe they'll put you in one of those ARMs, your adjustable rate mortgage. Those are very popular, again, for obvious reasons. But they're going to manage the timing. They're going to tell you what they need from you. You deliver the details. They deliver the goods. You're going to save money. So, no, you don't have to put off buying a house this year, and you shouldn't. David Hochberg and Team Hochberg, title sponsors of Live from My Office since 2020. Because that's actually when we started. And thank you, David, once again. David Hochberg, Team Hochberg, 855-56-DAVID, 56david.com. All right, today's charity worth mentioning, again, goes to the direct cause of Ukraine. There are literally millions of children around the world who've been traumatized by wars and conflict, and they need someone to fight for them. There's great organizations out there everywhere, but right now, on the front lines, fighting for the kids of Ukraine is voices.org, VOICES, voices.org. Now, the website's important. I'm going to give you the website extension in the English translation. This is a fully vetted website for an organization that not only handles and helps facilitate physical needs of kids in a war zone and kids who have escaped a war zone but are clearly traumatized, they also take care of the emotional side. And they really emphasize that. the mental strain and trauma that children are under, to try to get them through that so they can live a safe and productive life when the nightmare's over. Here's the website. Important to listen. And of course, as always, with every episode, you can get it directly in the show notes. It's voices.org.ua/EN. I know that's a lot, but hear it again. Voices.org.ua/EN. The /EN is important because that gives you the English translation of the website. And again, if you're driving or running around and didn't get that, check the show notes out. It is in there. Thank you, Ross Cochran, for making sure that this podcast is better than I am. He often touches it up and makes it look like great art or sound like great art. I don't know how he does it. He's a wizard. And thank you for doing that, Ross Cochran, the executive producer of Live from My Office. Appreciate you being here. The Deep Six. I do believe we're going to have a brand new episode for you the next time you check in on Live from My Office.
Thank you for listening to Live from My Office, a service of Monkey Run Productions. All rights reserved. The podcast is hosted by Steve Cochran, and it's mixed, edited, and produced by me, Ross Cochran. Support the show by subscribing wherever you're listening and by telling your friends about it. Follow Steve on all social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And make sure you check out this episode's show notes for relevant information discussed during the conversations. You can also email the show directly at thecochranshow@gmail.com with any questions or comments. And that's the best place to tell us about your favorite nonprofit so we can make sure we mention them on the next episode. Steve is available for corporate speaking gigs. He would love to MC your event. And occasionally, he's funny. Thank you for listening. Head to cochranshow.com for more.